Alright, hello. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I am going to be talking about one tip for every gadget in Dome Keeper. So I'm just going to go through all the gadgets. As of this last patch V4, which happened just a few days ago as of recording this, Dome Keeper has added 11 new gadgets on top of the existing 11. In addition, the majority of those have a supplement that you can pick up, big orb you can pick up down in the mine, bring it up and get a supplement, a very strong upgrade for those gadgets. I'm going to be mentioning the supplements when I think they're relevant, but some of them maybe not so useful. So I'm going to just look at the list of gadgets here, alphabetical order, go through them. All right, autocannon. My one tip for autocannon would be to use the shotgun upgrade path. I think that having the high damage output of a burst of shots is most likely going to be more useful for you in taking down big targets, the big driller enemy, or the scarab, which is the big scary flying one. Having a high damage output is probably more useful than quick shots most of the time. For blast mining, this was just made a lot stronger in this last patch. So before it was pretty useless, but now you can realistically use blast mining for the majority of your mining if you get the right upgrades. The supplement for this one is going to let you take 3 bomb charges down. So my tip would just be, if you want to use blast mining as your main source of mining, prioritize getting the supplement for it quickly, because having 3 charges of the bomb instead of 1 is going to make such a huge difference. The buzzsaw, I don't have too much to say about this one. It's a little saw that goes on the surface of your dome and saws back and forth. I think it's a good potential pickup if you're struggling a lot with melee enemies on the surface of your dome. So if you already have something like Spire, which is going to handle a lot of the projectile shots for you, then maybe taking a buzzsaw along with it could be nice. Condenser. The condenser is a great source of water in this patch. As of this recent update V4, there's a lot more uses for water, since you're going to end up with more gadgets that you want to put upgrades into. Lots of different uses for water that weren't here before. So with this one, I would just recommend, if you get Condenser, probably you would only want to take it early and get it as upgraded as you can, as fast as you can, because it's free real estate from then on. You can use it for auto overcharge later if you get the supplement for it, but I probably wouldn't worry about doing that outside of maybe really long runs where the combats are going to get difficult. My number one tip for Drillbert is not to pick Drillbert. I think that he remains pretty terrible, with the biggest problem being that you just have to constantly baby him and check if he's still actively doing anything. That being said, if you want to pick Drillbert, my recommendation would be to love him with your entire heart, because he's a very nice boy. And maybe also pick up the supplement, which gives you 2 additional cousins of Drillbert. The drilling rig. So the drilling rig's going to drill straight down for you. It's a nice thing to have if you're in like a challenge where you don't get to drill very much, or if you're relying on bombs for most of your drilling. It's a nice little bit of supplemental drilling on top of that. And this serves a similar function as the lift with a little bit of upgrading, which is that it can hold resources in place, stop them from falling. And so what I would do, if you take the drilling rig, put some upgrades into it so that you can just leave resources floating in the air, and that way you'll be able to much more efficiently bring things up, use up your time as much as possible. Dome armor, it's armor for your dome. I don't have too much interesting to say about this one, much like the Buzzsaw. I think it's a nice thing that you can pick up if you find yourself taking little bits of chip damage, and if you like that little bit of armor that you get from the shield dome, the the shield main gadget, then try this out, see what you think about it. Similarly, the furnace is kind of an analog of the repellent. It can be used to delay waves. My recommendation for the furnace would be to really think about your water as an important resource in this patch, because you can use water, you can burn water in this thing to delay the waves, and I would maybe recommend not doing that unless you have a significant surplus of water, because there are so many good upgrades that you want to spend water on in this patch. But if you can continue to delay waves a lot, if you get this fully upgraded and you're throwing resources in to continuously delay all the time, that can be a good thing to avoid getting to the really strong combats later on. So if you find yourself having a lot of difficulty once wave 20 hits or once wave 30 hits and you have to fight the bigger enemies, then you can use Furnace to hopefully close out the game before then. Ironworms. They are a great way to get extra iron, because they will mine the iron for you, but they'll also spew out a bunch of extra iron on top of that. So if you get ironworms, I would say don't focus on drilling upgrades nearly as much as carrying upgrades. I think if you rely on your worms as much as possible, then you can, spend that time, spend those valuable resources on carrying the resources back up to the top. And then I guess a tip I'll give you for ironworms is once they spawn, you can take them out of your base. And if you don't find any iron to use them on, you can just leave them somewhere, pick them back up the next wave after combat or whatever, and, just use them as needed. So if you take them out of your base as soon as you get the chance, even if you're not going to use it right away, you can start the cooldown on them respawning the next time. Lift. So lift, I think the least valuable thing about lift is the lifting. It's just a great way to get your keeper a little bit of extra speed moving upward. The keeper move speed upgrades on the lift are very nice to have. And similar to what I said before with the drilling rig, you can use it to hold resources in place for you. So, if you're taking something up and you can't get it all the way up, leave it on the lift. Some of it might be brought up by the lift, but the rest of it you can just get yourself later and not have to have it fall all the way back down into a hole or something. The missile launcher is an active combat ability. You have to press a button to fire the missile. My experience with it is that it's not particularly smart in its targeting. So I guess my tip would be not to rely on it too much to try to take out high value targets. If there are a bunch of small insignificant enemies on the screen, consider not using it because you're just kind of wasting the shot. Whereas if you have a couple enemies on the screen that are really big and tanky, then maybe shoot all your missiles at that point and just help you take down something big. The mushroom farm. So I mean, the mushroom farm lets you just plant a mushroom that you can then eat to make you move faster and drill faster. It's a plantable mushroom like you can find in the mushroom cave. My advice would be to leave a strip of ground up near the top, like right below your base, where you can plant a bunch of mushrooms in a row. Reason being that that way, if you do end up taking the mushroom supplement that lets you eat multiple mushrooms and get a bonus, then you can just have them all right next to each other right by your base, eat them all, and then carry on or teleport or whatever you need to do. You could spread the mushrooms out to different parts of your mine, and I think maybe that's useful if you know you're going to be going back to those places a lot. To continually visit a tree or a cave or something. But for the most part, I would just try to plant the mushrooms right below your base at the top. Probe. I think probe is generally just a worse version of the prospecting meter. I would advise you to go with the prospecting meter over the probe if you had the option. But you can take the probe if you want to, find resources farther apart, drill farther apart so that you're not having to, scrub every single inch to try to find something. So it's going to be more useful on a really big map. I would recommend going with the distance upgrades more than anything else. Try to get your probe long range so that you can drill 8-9 tiles apart. And that way, you save yourself a lot of time. Prospecting meter is a similar idea, but without the active part. It just kind of works on its own. What I would do with the prospecting meter, my advice is not to take the last range upgrade unless you really think you need it for some reason. I find that the definition on it gets hard to read when you have higher range, because you have the little tiny scale that you're trying to read off of. It actually makes it harder to find resources that you're close to, in my experience. And it's just an expense that you don't have to pay when upgrading this. So I would advise to quickly buy one range and speed upgrade, but then not to buy the final range upgrade. Resource converter. This thing can be used to convert resources. It's true. Many people are saying this. But it can also just be used to multiply your iron and just constantly having a source of iron, and then at some point pivot into creating cobalt, using that to heal yourself. I would generally recommend, if you're going to take the resource converter, just try to make a bunch of iron out of it, and that way you can just upgrade your keeper a bunch, upgrade your weapon a bunch, and then you can consider later if you want to start converting to other resources. But I would just go iron to iron for the most part. The resource packer lets you condense your resources so that you're only using a little bit of your carrying capacity to carry a whole bunch of resources. My tip for this would be that this does work with drones and Squidly, the little squid that carries resources up to the top for you. So this is a really strong combination that you can use with the drone yard gadget, the drone yard main gadget, and teleporter or underground station. Teleporter letting you teleport to the top, of course. Underground station lets you control your dome, purchase things, and fight from down in your mine. So if you get Resource Packer, you pack a bunch of stuff together, your drones take it up to the top for you. Now you never have to go up to the top at all. And, it's just a very powerful system that you can get running. Shockwave Hammer. This thing just got an update, probably a nerf, because what was going to be my tip was to not buy any of the upgrades, because you want to get the really powerful supplement for this, have it do a bunch of damage, and all of the upgrades just add more cooldown time. However, now the supplements bonus is percentage based and not just like a flat damage increase. So you would want to purchase the upgrades on this. My advice, the hammer is a great way to take out a diver. If you hear the sound that's coming and you know you can't get your weapon over to get it in time, if you trigger the hammer right after you hear the sound of a diver, it's going to die in the air. You can also use the hammer to clear out a whole bunch of the tiny little enemies. And like I said, the supplement for this makes the damage really high. Spire. Spire is great for dealing with projectiles. Takes out projectiles for you, and you can actually really go either upgrade path with this, sustained fire or burst. I don't think there's one that's significantly better than the other. My recommendation for this, really, it's just I would take Spire primarily on runs that are going to go really long, because it has so many upgrades that take water. If you're going to take Spire and you really plan to get a lot of upgrades on it, so it's doing a lot of work against strong enemies like the Scarab, then consider taking the Condenser to get some extra water for it, or just consider doing it in a really long run where you're going to have time to gain enough water. It's a stun laser. It stuns enemies. It's also a laser. I haven't used the stun laser too much lately, because I tend to think of it as a bit worse than the autocannon. Stunning versus dealing damage. And there have been strats in the past where you use the stun laser to stall while you get some extra mining done or something. The devs have kind of cracked down on that a little by making detection of when you're not there or when you're stalling. So there's a bunch more enemies that spawn in, and you don't want to deal with that. So I think the stun laser is a decent option for dealing with strong enemies, strong waves. It's certainly something you can pick up if you are having trouble in combat, but I guess my advice is I would probably take the autocannon over the stun laser if given the option and you can't have both. Suit blaster. It blasts the suit. Makes little explosions around you. I think that this is generally a lot worse than the blast mining bombs, because the explosions are so much smaller. But you can get more of them. You can get them more frequently. And I would say this is actually really useful for the Assessor. I would recommend this if you're playing the Assessor. My advice would be get the supplement for this, which lets you blast in a straight line instead of just a circle around yourself. and that way you can, do some strip mining that sometimes is not the easiest thing to do if you're playing Assessor. Teleporter. The teleporter, I don't love the supplement for it, which teleports resources for you, but I think it's a great gadget to have right now with some of the combos that I've mentioned earlier. So it's great with blast mining since you can take the bombs through it with a little bit of upgrading. It's great if you want to just have drones take everything up for you with the resource packer and the drone yard. You can just go back up to the top, spend all your time drilling, and not waste any time on actually taking resources up and down. And it's just generally a good time saver. Like, it's never gonna be terrible. There is a supplement for the keeper, the engineer, that gives you a one-way teleporter, and the gadget is this two-way teleporter, so you don't need both. If you are going to be doing something where the one-way teleporter is sufficient and you don't mind using a supplement on that, then you don't necessarily need to take the teleporter. That being said, I think supplements generally are harder to get than gadgets, so I don't know how useful that information is going to be to you. And the underground station, mentioned it a bit earlier, lets you fight and purchase things from down in your mine. It'll follow you automatically. You do need to clear out the middle line of your mine, so it's not a good pick if you're winding all over the place and you haven't dug straight down from the center. But my advice, again, would just be basically what I said before, which is that if you can get your resources up to the top without taking them up by packing them together and then having the drone yard take it up, then you can just use the underground station as a way to never have to go up to the surface at all. And the one thing to be aware of, I guess, is that your fights are going to be in low resolution. It actually looks low resolution when you fight. So just be aware of that and maybe learn the outlines, the vague shapes of the different enemy types if you're not familiar with them, because you might not know what's happening if you're not familiar with that view. So those are my general thoughts and tips on these gadgets. This patch is pretty recent and there's so many new things that I can't tell you what are the best gadgets. I feel pretty comfortable saying that the worst are probably like Drillbert and Probe, but I think you can make anything work in the Relic Hunt mode, and I think in guild assignments, these challenges, there's a lot of different opportunities to mess around, lots of situations where certain ones are going to be strong. But in Prestige, you're going to want to play around with it a little bit to try to find a combo that's going to be really efficient and just get resources up to the top as fast as possible as your first concern, and then worry about combat bonuses and things like the autocannon. So those are my thoughts right now on the gadgets in Domekeeper. That's a YouTube video. I don't know how long I just talked for. Hopefully not too long, but that's it.